It feels kind of amazing that the Bills were able to address basically all of our concerns about the offense within 2 plays last Thursday against Tampa Bay. What were our complaints? There was the whole 11 personnel versus 12 personnel thing. Who's wide receiver 2? Who's wide receiver 3? We kind of know who those people are. It's Gabe Davis. The slot receiver thing was still up for grabs. Is it Shakir? Is it Hardy? What are you trying to do? Is it going to be Isabella? You've elevated him from the practice squad. Why doesn't Josh Allen run anymore? It's just one less thing for the defense to defend. Can we stop doing the second down handoffs out of the shotgun, the second and long handoffs and such? And, 2 plays, I felt satisfied. The Bills stopped Tampa Bay after 1 first down. They get the ball. First play, Allen goes to Shakir out of the slot for 13 yards and a first down. Love that. They get up to the line, 1st and 10. Allen, out of the shotgun, I believe, just runs with it right away for 8 yards. And they're getting big cheers from the crowd right away after 2 plays. It's encouraging. I'm not necessarily sure if they were paying attention to what we were clamoring for, but it certainly showed on the field. That's the type of performance we've just been waiting for from the offense. And granted, they finished with 24 points, and I didn't love the last quarter and a half because the Bills finished with 4 punts, but they moved the ball pretty well on those drives. There was just a couple of 4th and short punts. I think situationally speaking, the level of opponent might have played into that role because Tampa Bay wasn't doing much as far as moving the football. Their only touchdown drive came off of Allen's only interception, which was tipped high in the air and intercepted by a lineman. 2 plays later, the Bucs are in the end zone, but it's a 23-yard drive. So they haven't moved the ball on you really much at all. So I'm sure that played into Sean McDermott's mind. I certainly hope so, at least. I want to think if that game was the Bengals, as it will be this week, that the decisions would have been different. He was basically just daring Tampa Bay to move the ball on them, and they really couldn't. Until, the second last drive, they go 17 plays, 92 yards, but it takes them 7.5 minutes. It took them half a quarter. They need to score twice, and it took them half a quarter and 2 third or fourth down penalties by the Bills that led to automatic first downs in order to get down there. And yeah, it was still a little sweaty at the end of it. More than I would have liked it to be, and that's partially because of the Bills punting on their last 4 drives. They get to 24 points. They have 24 points with 10 minutes left in the third quarter. They are well on their way to 40 in my mind, or 35 minimum, But they punt 4 times, and that's how you end up in this situation. The Bills, we're used to the Bills being that team that just puts you away. The Raider game, the Commander game, The team that just blows you out. You're trying to play catch up, and they just keep their foot on the gas. The Bills are a Power 5 school, college school, and you're in the MAC something. If the MAC out here catching strays from me, don't take it that way. I think you understand the point I'm trying to make. So it got a little sweaty at the end, and Baker Mayfield lobs up this Hail Mary, and as the ball is beginning to reach its apex, I'm thinking, that's going to make it. That is going to make it. Please don't catch this, because I will be dead to the world for I don't even know how long. Fortunately, whatever, it lands on the ground. Chris Godwin doesn't turn around in time. Yeah, was he there? Yeah. But, he didn't turn around in time. You want to point to something, be like, oh, this should have been called DPI. I don't know. Mike Evans took Jordan Poyer and launched him across the end zone. It could go both ways. They just don't call it on those plays. They don't do it. So the Bills, do they escape? Is that the right word to use? Escape Tampa Bay? I don't know. I never felt like they were going to lose. I know, as Baker Mayfield lets that go, I'm thinking all these things are running through my head, like the Hail Murray to D-Hop. And we allowed another Hail Mary situation to the Chargers, I believe, in the COVID year. Herbert hit somebody for a Hail Mary that landed at the 2-yard line, and they had a chance. It was a 10-point game, I think, fortunately, at the time. But I was thinking, hey, this isn't great. Could we maybe make sure this doesn't happen anymore? Anyway, let's wash your hands clean in Tampa Bay. 5-3. 1 game out of division lead as Miami put together a win against Carolina on Sunday. Big weekend. Just a big weekend overall, especially for the AFC, because I think you have what people might view as the 4 best teams, or 4 of the 5 best teams for sure. Baltimore would be the other, playing each other. The Bills are playing the Bengals on Sunday Night Football. The Dolphins and the Chiefs are playing each other Sunday morning in Germany. That kind of stinks. Like, possible game of the year potential there, and it's at 9:30 in the morning. I guess it's still a standalone game, but I think a lot of people might miss it. I wish it were Monday night or immediately preceding the Bills game or what have you. I just wish it weren't at 9:30 a.m. But it's going to go a long way to determine, what happens in the AFC. It's going to determine tiebreakers. It's going to maybe give somebody a leg up on the division, even though Kansas City and Cincinnati obviously aren't in the same division. That's going to have probably I don't want to necessarily say probably, because Baltimore has a win over Cincinnati, and they're certainly not going to roll over and give Cincinnati the division. But it's going to matter when it comes to playoff seeding, when it comes to who's going to make the playoffs in the first place, because the AFC is so airtight right now. And it might go a long way to determine who's going to win the AFC East between the Bills and the Dolphins. Even though that game, there's still a Week 18 game to come between the Bills and Dolphins, this Sunday could stretch the lead to Miami +2, and then you have to make up the 2 games against them the rest of the way with, let's be honest, a pretty difficult schedule. Even Denver, who I've talked about in multiple videos, like, oh, why am I talking about Denver? We'll talk about Denver when we get to Denver. As bad as they've been, their defense is starting to hit their stride a little bit. They gave you some significant assistance last week by beating the Chiefs. And the Chiefs are struggling a little bit in their own right. They're not exactly lighting up the scoreboard. And Miami, when they've played good teams, they've been beat. The Bills, the Eagles. So there's just a lot to determine. Like, we don't really know who's what. Like, the Bills have lost to the Patriots and almost lost to the Giants. The Bengals are 0-3 in the AFC and 4-0 in the NFC. What's happening there? Like, it's been a weird year. But let's move forward to the Bengals. How would you describe them? Are they rivals? Are the Bengals our rivals? Feels kind of like it, right? Do you have to beat them to be rivals? If they beat you again, are you still rivals, or are they just better than you? I don't know. I'll leave that for you to decide, the whole rivalry thing. But I think a lot of fans are like, Kansas City. Kansas City's our rival. Not so much in the playoffs because they beat us every time, but we've beaten them in the regular season. But, that's a rivalry. I don't think those teams love each other too much. It might be there with the Bengals, too. They might be there, But where are we? I think the Bengals, as I'm doing this, pantomime of levels here, Bengals are up there. They're up there, obviously, with the Chiefs, especially after the playoff defeat back in January where, the game felt over in about, 6 minutes. It's 14-0, and you're like, oh, crap. The only path really here to winning this is getting stops and scoring probably 30 points. And the Bills couldn't do either. You might find yourself in that situation again this Sunday. The Bengals appear to be hitting their stride. Just as I mentioned about Denver's defense, the Bengals are getting there on offense. They struggled through the first 4 weeks of the season. Joe Burrow was... I just got an ad on here. Sorry about that. There we go. Let's get that out of here. I'm going to mute that. So strange. Sorry. Joe Burrow was struggling, probably with that calf injury that he sustained in training camp. Embarrassed by the Browns, beat by the Ravens, struggled against the Rams, but they got the W there, and then just blown out by the Titans. But since then, they've won 3 in a row. He has completed at least 2/3 of his passes in the last 4 games, despite the fact being 3-1. He finally got a 300-yard game. He has 8 touchdowns versus 2 picks the past 3 games over their 3-game win streak. He finally ran last week against San Francisco, 6 carries for 43 yards. His previous season high was just 7 yards. He seems back. They seem back. Burrow, Chase, Higgins. Higgins has been a little bit quieter than Chase has, than maybe he's used to being. But I'd rather have him than not have him. There's just this kind of weird thing going on with, the hot team, It was Miami when they scored 70 points. The next week, they went to Buffalo and lost by 28. Then it was the Bills. The Bills are now the hot team. Then they go to London and they lose. It was San Francisco. Then they go into Cleveland and they lose. Guess it's a little advantageous for the Bengals to be playing a home game this week. I want to talk about the motivation that they're using, and I want to slam it. I really do, but at the same time, if it works, it's hard for me to slam it. Like last January, it was, the ticket sales, haha, you guys are selling tickets to the AFC Championship too, that you have to refund your fans for, but it worked for them. And now it's I heard Bills players saying, players plural. No, it was really just maybe Isaiah McKenzie. Maybe there's more. I don't know. We haven't heard public comments other than Isaiah McKenzie, who's no longer on the team, saying that, if it wasn't snowing, they would have beat us. I don't know. That's your motivation? I don't know. I'm trying to make fun of them for having corny motivations, but they've beaten us most recently, and it's worked because they've beaten us most recently. End of story. So, yeah, it doesn't shock me that athletes use what other athletes say as motivation, especially when it's about them. Of course they do. Despite how it might look to a third party, fan or media member, whatever. Let's look at the matchup a little bit more. Like I said, Burrow is really certainly hitting his stride. The Bengals are in general. That's kind of been the overall theme that I've been harping on. 3 straight wins. The Seattle win a couple weeks ago was a little tough, but I think very complete, very impressive win against the Niners, a good Niners team. If you're a fan of a good team in the AFC, you were really hoping the Niners were going to take care of business there. And not that the Bengals necessarily ran away with it. They were up 24-10. The Niners did make it 24-17. It felt like everything was a struggle for the Niners. And if you're watching the game, which some of you might have been, it was, the Bills weren't on. It was Sunday, 4 o'clock. It was the featured game. It felt like the Bengals were going to win the whole time because everything that they were doing looked relatively easy. They even ran the ball well against the Niners, which nobody really ever does, it seems. It was their best rushing performance of the year, the Bengals, I mean. And Joe Burrow was 28 of 32. Every time he dropped back, it was complete. Every time they handed off, it was 5 yards, it seemed like. Just if you're watching the game in, just getting a feel for it, the momentum of it, it felt like the Bengals were going to win the whole time. Despite the fact that they gave up 460 yards. And 300 and some odd yards to Brock Purdy. Of course, they had a negative game script in the second half, but, like I said, it looked pretty simple for them the whole time. I have obviously been impressed by the Bengals the last month, of course. And the Bills have been up and down. It's been roller coastery for them. They haven't had a truly impressive offensive performance since the Dolphins game on October 1st. And, we're over a month removed since that. And this feels like the type of game where you I kind of said this earlier because I was talking about it with the playoff game. Like, yeah, you need to score 30 points. I saw this conversation circulating on Twitter/X. Like, what is the most or the least amount of points that you're comfortable signing up for with the Bills? And like, I would personally say 32 because I'm giving the Bengals 31. I don't think I'm giving the Bengals 31, but I want to assume the Bengals are probably going to score about 31, just like they did this past week against the Niners, who have a better defense, presumably, than you do, despite the stuff that you've added at the trade deadline. Oh, yeah, let's talk about that, of course. Sorry, didn't mean to skip over it. I like the add of Rasul Douglas. I think he's been very good for Green Bay since they basically plucked him off of waivers. He fit right in there, and he was immediately a good player. And I think that he gives you a little bit of flexibility at corner, especially with Kyrie Elam going to IR. Dane Jackson can maybe slide back into the role that he's really best suited for. I think Dane Jackson is really one of the best fill-in corners, the best CB4s probably in the league. But when he's in the starting lineup, it makes me feel a little uneasy about it, about the pass defense. I think Rasul Douglas can hopefully hold that down a little bit. I don't know if he's going to be ready to play immediately. I hope so. But I just feel better. I feel better about the defense, having seen them use Jordan Poyer as the off-ball linebacker in Matt Milano's role this past Thursday, and they used Hyde and Rapp as the safeties, and I thought Rapp's DPI penalty was bad. He goes over top of the defender and swats the ball. He's playing the ball. The defender has him kind of boxed out, so he just kind of goes over and knocks it down. Karma got them because the officials or the Bucs or whomever, because Shaq Lawson blocked the field goal. That was tipped. That was tipped. Excuse me. But yeah, I feel better about using Douglas Benford as the outside corners, Hyde and Rapp as the safeties, Bernard and Poyer as the linebackers, and now you have Floyd and Rousseau and Vaughn and Epinesa and on the interior Ed and Jordan Phillips and now Linval Joseph, who is certainly past his prime, but you've been looking for a big body to swallow up blockers, and that's what he is. A really strong human being. So hopefully that makes a difference. I mean, this is all we can really do is hope for at this point because we haven't seen it yet. And hopefully they're ready to play this Sunday against the Bengals because, yeah, I mean, I've said it 10 times already. This is a Bengals team that, like I said, is hitting their stride. It's a Bills team that, as good as Josh Allen has been over the past month, if you find like PFF metrics or anything else like that, Allen has been outstanding over the past month. There have just been, poor defensive performances or random turnovers, drops, fumbles, you name it. The Bills have 7 turnovers in the last 4 games. Like, that's inexcusable. They've only forced 3. Like, when the Bills were 3-1, they were, I guess outside of the Jets game, and from weeks 2 to 4, where they played the Raiders, the Commanders, the Dolphins, the turnover differential was 10-1. Like, they were +9. Since then, they're -4. I think you got to score. You got to score a lot. Like I said, I would sign up for 32 points. That's what I want, 32 points. I'm not picking the Bills to win, though. I'm really not. I need to see them be complete again. I can't be complete for 2.5 quarters, score 24 points, and punt 4 times. Like I said, I think it would be a little bit different if the level of opponent were different. And here it is. So let me see it. I didn't see it last week because you chose not to. So I want to see it now. But I'm going to pick the Bengals to beat the Bills. I say close because the Bills don't really get blown out. Count on one hand the number of times it's happened really since 2019, since the Bills really hit the stride of their own, this run that they're on. So I'm going to pick the Bengals 34-30 over the Bills. Guys, thank you for coming this far in the video. Hit me up on Twitter/X. My YouTube username is the same as my Twitter/X handle. But enjoy your weekend. above all else, and see, I did it again. I just did it again. I knew it in my head. I'm screwing up my own line. Enjoy your weekend. As always, above all else, go Bills.